Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Aisle. I'm your host, Nikki Wolfe, and today we have one of our favorite returning guests to the show, Megan Thurlow. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Nikki. Glad to be here.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, we are excited to have you here and just hear a little bit about your story. I think based on the title of this episode, people have an idea. We're talking all about brain health. Now, I just want to give them a little bit of a background on how you came to Life Seasons and what you're doing. So, Megan has been a veteran rep at Life Seasons for about the last 8 years. She's the one that actually got me the job. So, thank you. I'm
Taught her
forever in
knows.
debt. She is a passionate educator. She is an extremely hard worker. And she is fantastic with Excel documents. So she's my go-to when I need to get that stuff done. But Meg, give us a little bit more on how you got started with Life Seasons and where you're currently at now.
So to go kind of start from the beginning, how I got into supplementation and nutrition was my little brother was having severe anxiety issues. And he was diagnosed with tics, like a mild form of Tourette's. And I think he was like 8 years old. And my mom brought him to the doctor, and they wanted to immediately put him on medication for the foreseeable future. And very mind-numbing medication, kind of altering your personality. And so she sought out to figure out how can we try something naturally. And through changing his diet, getting rid of red dye in his food and putting him on some magnesium, he turned into a completely different person. Wow. So watching that happen to my brother, I was in, going into college at the time. So I was like, wow, I really want to go into something to do with nutrition or supplementation, like after witnessing something like that. So I ended up working for a functional medicine doctor's office over in Boston, and was introduced to the world of medical grade supplements, and fell in love with just this inner workings of the doctors, looking at these research studies on what these supplements can do, and kind of the integrative medicine where they're using pharmaceuticals and supplements, but we're trying to go as natural as we can. So yeah, that's kind of how I came to Life Seasons, was because it really fit into what I was looking for in a company, that more medical grade feel.
I love that story. And I think a lot of people in this industry come from some sort of a personal experience, which I know you even have more to share on, what creates this passion and this hunger in you to learn more, to know more, and to be able to share this knowledge. But I do have a quick question. Do you know why or how they were able to determine it was the red dye? I don't even know.
There's a lot of research that specifically has to do with red dye in kids' food, in it altering their personality. And
wow.
I think his diet every day was milkshakes and hot dogs.
Wow.
Very nutritious. And then hot dogs had red dye in them.
Man. All right, so I'm gonna have to switch out my red Jello for yellow Jello now. Just kidding. I have made a really good quality gelatin gummies before. I'll have to make those soon. So I know, starting my natural motherhood coming soon. So, anyways, that's a little tangent. But as we're talking about passion and brain health, tell me why you're so passionate specifically about brain health.
Yeah, so just to get, we already got personal, so I'll just share more of my story. So about 4 years ago, my father passed away from a rare form of dementia called frontal temporal lobe dementia. He was 55 years old. So this wasn't what you're normally seeing. Like, he was very young, and within 4 years of being diagnosed, he had passed. And frontal temporal lobe dementia has to do with your personality. So it's often very misdiagnosed. It's just, you're watching somebody lose their humanity, and going to the doctor with him and trying to figure out things to do, and trying to help him in some way. And they really they're like, there's not much we can do. We can make them comfortable, and it's kind of just a waiting game. And for anyone out there, which unfortunately it's a lot of people who have watched somebody go through any sort of cognitive decline, it's extremely traumatic and very frustrating. And it's, I immediately was like, there has to be something more that we can do for these people. And so 4 years ago when this was happening, it was kind of a blessing. We had just started working with Dr. Dale Bredesen, who's our exclusive supplement partner. And he just happens to be the #1 leading neurologist for natural brain health in the entire world. So learning about his work, reading his book, The End of Alzheimer's, was a way for me to cope and try and take what happened to me and see if I can help other people going through very similar situations.
What an encouraging message that is your way to cope, is let me learn more. Let me see what I can do, how I can help prevent this in others. And so I just commend you. And I know I was there kind of during that journey of experiencing it, and just what an incredibly challenging time. And I'm sure that it continues to be, but just learning more, like you said, and what you've already done is you're putting in the work to make a difference in cognitive decline. And so that's fantastic. Now we talked a little bit about Dale, and one thing I love, Dr. Dale Bredesen, what I love about him is he is not only the first doctor who has slowed the progression of Alzheimer's and dementia, he has reversed it, which has never existed before. And, he was able to determine that there was like over 40 different types of things that led to this cognitive decline. And so he broke those down into these 6 different categories. And from that, he created a protocol and supplementation and just all these different things that were supportive. And so, he has the Recode line, which targets those 6 different subtypes. I don't know if you wanted to dive into a little bit of those.
Yeah. And so just real quick, because I think that, we talk about Recode and the reversal of cognitive decline, and it didn't really, I feel like that doesn't resonate with some people. Like they're like, okay, that sounds cool, but like to actually understand what that means. So to this day, there is no pharmaceutical that stops or even slows the progression down of Alzheimer's. So we know what creates Alzheimer's. We just aren't having the best of luck treating it. So it's these amyloid plaques that build up in the brain. So, you would think, let's make a pharmaceutical and this is going to remove the plaques in the brain and that will get rid of it, right? But that's not what's happening. So think of these plaques that build up in the brain as a protective mechanism that the brain is making. So when Bredesen talked about, a really good analogy that just really hit home with me, you're running, you fall down, you scrape your leg, right? And your knee is bleeding, and then your knee forms a scab. And so that scab is the result of, your body making this protective mechanism so that you don't bleed out and die. Think of these amyloid plaques in the brain as those scabs on the brain. So it's the result of something else damaging your brain. So we can't just remove the plaques. So
love that so much.
So Bredesen started looking at, instead of removing the plaques, let's go back one more step. And why are they even being created in the first place? And so he created the Recode protocol, which is a whole diet, lifestyle, supplement protocol. And in this study that made him, the big name that he is today, he was able to take 100 people who were diagnosed with Alzheimer's and put them through his Recode protocol. So that diet, lifestyle, supplement protocol, a whole life change. And he took a brain scan. So their brains look like someone who has Alzheimer's. It's degrading in those areas that you would normally see. They go through the Recode protocol. Afterwards, he takes another brain scan. And so what he was able to show is not only was he able to stop the progression from getting any worse, their brains had grown back. So he is showing for the first time that you can build the brain back up. This isn't a, we'll make you comfortable, there's nothing we can do. Not only can you rebuild the brain, but it is preventative. If if you do it in the right way and you do the right things, you can actually come back out of this or prevent it from ever happening.
Absolutely mind-blowing. And you think about it, we would never think, okay, let me continue taking off the scab and that's going to solve the problem. We would look at, well, why are we tripping in the first place? How do we prevent that from happening? And that we've never been able to do this with cognitive health before, and that he was able to kind of get to the root of what's going on. So I absolutely love that. And I think you explained it so well. So thank you for pulling that apart and really giving us that analogy. For those that listen regularly on here know that I love my analogies. So that Band-Aid and scab was really helpful. So I appreciate that. One other thing before we dive into the formulations, I like to give you like a little bit of baseline for the brain and how it works with another analogy. So I like to think of the brain, there's different thoughts going on, whether they're going really fast and you're ruminating and you can't get out of your head, or they're slow and you can't like think and come up with words. Think of those as cords. So cords that go to an outlet. Now, if that cord doesn't plug in, light bulb doesn't turn on. And so it's very dark. It's hard to see. You can't see faces or remember names or come up with words. So those neurotransmitters are going to be your cords. So those aren't quite making those connections. We really want to help support those cords making connections. But on the flip side, somebody who's hyperactive, where those thoughts are going super, super fast and you can't turn your brain off and it feels like a roller coaster and you can't focus because you're getting pulled on. Well, that's like it's a hot day. You have your AC on, your fan, you're curling on your toaster, the TV. You're going to have a circuit break. It's going to be a burnout and a fizzle, and you're not going to be able to function properly. And it might even take a while to fix that burnout. And so thinking of these neurotransmitters as those cords, we want to regulate and modulate how many cords are plugged in, making sure they're able to plug in. So I just like to preface the brain and particularly these three formulas with that analogy for those of you, because as we dive through, it might be a little bit easier to understand them. So Meg, let's start talking about our three brain formulas. You want to start with NeuroQ?
I would love to. So, we just had a nice background about Dr. Bredesen. So how does this relate to NeuroQ? So basically, within Dr. Bredesen's RECODE protocol, he breaks up Alzheimer's into basically 6 different subtypes. There's so many different ways that lead to cognitive decline. We're not all going to be the same. So those 6 subtypes are going to be things like circulation, nutrient deficiency, toxicity overload in the body, even physical trauma to the brain, like a stroke or, a football player getting hit in the head, to blood sugar issues and inflammation in the body. So there's all these different subtypes. And so if someone is actually diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they would go see a practitioner that's Dr. Bredesen certified, and they could actually get this blood work done that shows them which type of Alzheimer's that they have. Usually you're between 1 or 2 of a certain type. So maybe you are the inflammatory type and the nutrient deficiency type. So then they would put you on a specific protocol that makes sense for what your results are showing. So that's the RECODE protocol. So when we're talking about NeuroQ, think of it as pre-code, so preventative of cognitive decline. So this is going to be, there's an ingredient in NeuroQ for every subtype. So there's certain things that are going to help with inflammation, circulation, blood sugar, toxicity
and there's
overload,
one
but
ingredient,
it's very thought out.
And there's one ingredient that's helpful for all 6 too.
Nikki, which one is that?
Propolis. So B propolis supports all 6 subcategories, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and so just a real quick cool thing about B propolis is because there's all these different, royal jelly, B propolis, like what's the difference, right? So the bees in their hive, they make bee propolis as it's like this waxy like substance that they use to kind of repair and glue up on the side of their hives. And so beekeepers found that they were making these perfect hives for their bees to live in, and they had stopped making bee propolis. All the bees started dying. And so we realized that this bee propolis is a superfood, and it is really helping with their immune system, inflammation. It's protecting them against so many different things in their environment. So they needed to make these hives all jagged and edgy so that they made the bee propolis again. And then, they were becoming a lot more healthy. So bee propolis, really important for the bees, and people know it as a superfood, but it's also really great for our brains.
I love that. And I've actually heard, and it makes me want to research it right now. I'm pretty sure the queen bee is only consuming just bee propolis. And that's how she's gotten. So there's something to that where
I think you're confusing
royal jelly.
Yeah. Which is another great ingredient.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm mixing it up. But yeah, propolis is incredible. And again, like Megan said, it's affecting and supporting all 6 of those subcategories. And one way I like to explain this formula is this is designed to help us remember what we already have. So versus other formulas that are like remembering what we want to know. Maybe that's new material you're studying, you're a student. This is remembering what I already have. So names, places, any sort of memories. We want to keep that in there. And it's like the Swiss Army knife of cognitive performance. And so it is such an incredible formula. And it's the only formula that exists that actually addresses all 8 aspects of brain activity. There's some formulas that are 4, 6. This is the only one that exists that addresses all 8 of the aspects. Any ingredients in here? I know we talked about propolis. Anything else that stands out for you?
Yes, there's a lot, but I think we're going to have phosphatidylserine in there, ginkgo, gotu kola. My favorite is going to be the coffee fruit extract. So coffee fruit extract or coffee fruit is, it looks like a cherry and it surrounds the coffee bean. So it's the fruit that surrounds the coffee bean. And so we're using neurofactor, which is this patented form of the coffee fruit extract. And what's so cool about it is it's been shown in studies to naturally increase BDNF in your body, brain-derived neurotropic factor, by 120% in 1 hour. So that's a lot of BDNF very quickly. And you're probably asking yourself, what is BDNF? So BDNF, you don't need to remember the long name of the brain-derived neurotropic factor. What you do need to remember is it's the number 1 builder of the brain. So we do all of these things in those subcategories that are tearing down and breaking down our brains. So we need more buildup than we have breakdown. And so the easiest way to do that is to increase BDNF in the body. In natural ways to increase BDNF would be really good sleep, meditation, staying away from alcohol, eating healthy. A ketogenic diet is actually increasing BDNF. So it kind of plays into the rest of what Dr. Bredesen's protocol talks about. So it makes a lot of sense, but that's going to be the fastest way to regrow the brain.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a good understanding of the BDNF. And, a big takeaway is it's going to stimulate and control the growth of new brain cells. And it's going to help prevent ones from getting damaged over time. So like you said, it's the number 1 most, influential component of brain health. So we want to make sure that we have, BDNF, plenty of it in our brains, and, a gradual decline in its production is natural and inevitable. So after a person's born, their levels will increase steadily until adulthood, and then it starts to reverse and then eventually diminishes. And so really, whether that's supplementation or lifestyle like that you mentioned, we want to make sure that we keep those levels up. So yes, fantastic ingredient. We also have turmeric in there. And so what the turmeric's going to be doing is it kind of can work multiple ways, but it's designed for that detoxification. So strengthening the memory and the mental clarity by removing toxins from the brain. So the turmeric will be supportive for that, but as well, the B propolis are going to be helpful. Ginkgo, which we've also heard of a lot in brain section, that's going to be designed to help get the blood pumping to the brain so that we can be sure that we're firing on all cylinders. So just a full packed formula. Any other lasting inputs on NeuroQ? What consumer would go to NeuroQ maybe versus a Clarity or a Focus R, which we will get to in a second?
This is going to be that person that maybe you're like me and you have cognitive decline that runs in your family. It's never too early to start taking it. You're forgetting your keys, your wallet, your phone, names. Maybe your partner's noticing you're slipping a little bit. Yeah, it's going to be anyone who's trying to support their memory at any age. One thing I do want to add about the NeuroQ is it comes with the first ever free clinical brain assessment. So this is something you can go online to myneuroqscore.com and you can take this 15-minute brain test. And so Dr. Bredesen is huge on know your score. So at any age, you should know where your brain is at, because unfortunately, the only time we get our brains checked is when something is wrong. Or if you're experiencing cognitive decline and you're at the neurologist, they'll have you take this exact test. It's made to be taken over and over again. So what's really cool about this is we recommend taking the test and then taking NeuroQ for every day, for multiple months, and taking the test once a month. And so now you can see your success with the product, because unfortunately what we see with a lot of these higher price point brain items is people get really excited they're going to invest in their health. They're going to invest in their brain health. And they go in and they buy these products, and in like 2 to 3 months later, they're like, I don't know how to measure it. I don't really know if it's working, because there's so many different factors that play into your brain. Are you tired? Are you not present? Do you have a lot on your mind? Are you stressed? So this is a concrete way to actually grade how your brain is doing.
Absolutely. And it is, like you said, it's completely free. You can do it as many times as you want. You don't even need to be taking NeuroQ to do it. But obviously that's, what it's intended for is you take the test before you start, take the formula for a full month, retake the test, continue with that, continue testing, and you are going to see just such a beautiful transition of these numbers. One little thing I would mention, make sure you are undistracted or in an undistracting environment.
Good point.
You don't want to be on a work break. You don't want to be people coming in, kids, animals. And ideally, it's best to do on a computer, because you are going to need the keyboard. And be ready for 15 solid minutes. You're going to want to be moving and thinking as quickly as possible. So less distraction, the better. All right, let's jump on over into Clarity. So our first cognitive formula that Life Seasons developed. Tell us a little bit about this formula, Meg.
Clarity is such a great product. I mean, this really shows what Life Seasons is all about, and what they're so good at is creating a product that has everything you need in it at the levels that have been shown in studies. This is the amount that you need for it to be effective in the body. If I had a little tray right here and I'm in a health food store, if I was to pull every ingredient that's on the Clarity at the dosage that it's at in that formula and find the cheapest item and put it on this little tray, you're looking at like $150 at least worth of product. So it really is a bargain for everything you're getting in there. The Clarity is, think Clarity Clear Head. So that person that might come in with brain fog, maybe they're not necessarily looking for a stimulant. They are just looking, to help with recall. So we know so many people are coming in for brain fog right now. So think of the Clarity out of those three as more of the brain multivitamin.
Love it. And coming back to that analogy of the cords, this is for the individual that those cords aren't plugging in. Light bulb is not turning on. It's hard to find their keys or remember faces and names. This is going to be designed. Clarity cord connections. So all those C's. So thinking about making those connections so that things can start working properly. So any call out ingredients that you see in this formula that you want to go over? I know we have the phosphatidylserine again, huperzine A, which I love. What stands out for you?
I would love to call out the huperzine A. So huperzine A is a really interesting ingredient. It actually can pass the blood-brain barrier. And for people in the supplement world, we know it's really hard to find concrete evidence and studies that back a certain ingredient. And there's so many studies on huperzine A. If you were just to Google it, you'd see study after study of it showing that it keeps more acetylcholine in the brain. And acetylcholine is one of your absolute most important neurotransmitter involved in short-term memory, long-term memory, recall. So what it does is instead of just taking acetylcholine as a supplement, because it's hard for our bodies to absorb, the huperzine A, it slows down the chemical that breaks down acetylcholine. So it's just keeping acetylcholine in the brain for a longer period of time. They're also seeing, when they look at people with dementia and Alzheimer's, they see this common theme of people deficient in acetylcholine. So huperzine A is an amazing ingredient on its own, and to have it in this formula at that level is really impressive.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It's one of my favorite ingredients. And again, that acetylcholine is just one of the most important, valuable neurotransmitters that we can have in the body. I do love that we put vinpocetine. So that's really good for the mind to body connection. It's going to help improve blood flow and circulation, as well as ginkgo. And a lot of times people, if any listeners are listening and they're, ginkgo, I always got headaches and I just didn't respond well. Usually that's because you're having it isolated. And again, it's improving blood flow and circulation. So chances are you got the headache from that, but you really want to make sure you get it in a formula so those other ingredients can balance out the effects of the ginkgo. And so it works in a very synergistic form, one ingredient supporting the other. So ginkgo is incredible for blood flow. I just encourage to have it with other ingredients in there as well.
Absolutely.
All right. So clarity again. So NeuroQ, really good formula for those maybe who have a history or in the family of cognitive decline. Clarity is going to be really good to help you think of things you want to remember, or if you just have that clear thinking, if you're starting to forget names and faces or why you walk into a room, clarity is going to be a fantastic formula. Now let's round it out with our last formula. And this is something that is very helpful for myself and others with roller coaster minds and hyperactivity. Let's jump on over to Focuser. Tell us a little bit about this formula.
Yeah, so this is really going to be for that person with, they're having difficulties with attention and focus, concentration, which in the world we live in, we have so many distractions at all times. So if you have any sort of in ADD, ADHD, it's just heightened by all of the distractions we have around us at all times. So what this is going to do is, this is really one that you're going to take it and you're going to feel it. So if that person comes into the store and they're like, I really want to take something that I'm going to feel in the next 30 minutes, that's going to be your Focuser. And this is going to have, it's going to have some caffeine in there. But what's really cool about Life Seasons is whenever we use caffeine in any of our formulas, we always balance it. So there's going to be a nice blend of the kava and theanine in there, which are going to offset those negative effects of caffeine. So you give that good, sustainable energy. So in general, what this formula is going to be doing is it's going to be energizing the mind, but relaxing the body. So for that person that can't sit still, so they can't actually sit down and get anything done, it's calming the body, but it's also going to help you organize your thoughts. Because if you're someone like me or like Nikki, you got 10 things to do today and you're doing about 2% of each task and then moving on to the next one, but you're never fully completing a task and moving on to the next. So this is really great to help you organize your thoughts a little bit better.
Sign me up. This is exactly what I need. I haven't been able to take it right now just during pregnancy, but I'm very much looking forward to it once baby is here. And like Meg said, is we really balance it out with those other ingredients. And that goes to show with any of our formulas in life seasons, any of our stimulating formulas will always be offset with theanine, theobromine, or adaptogens to make sure that it's balanced and you don't have any negative implications. And if there's a brain formula that happens to put in a calming ingredient, that's not even guaranteed, they're usually doing it in an opposite ratio of heavy caffeine, small amount of calming. We're flipping that ratio and doing a heck of a lot of calming to that stimulation. So again, you will feel such a calmness, but a tension and focus. We have Bacopa, which is really good for memory and comprehension. Huperzine A again, which is going to prevent the breakdown of acetylcholine. Ginkgo, which we've discussed for blood flow and circulation. Theanine, like Meg mentioned. Kava, caffeine, very small amount. Holy basil. So just a really good blend of ingredients. Now, I know you've kind of touched upon it, but just to recap, who would you recommend this for, Meg?
This is good for students. This is good for anyone that has to go to work. This is going to be good for, anyone that does maybe they're trying to replace something with something a little healthier than just like that afternoon cup of coffee. Those biohackers, someone looking for a neurotropic, this would be a great addition to your supplement routine.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody who kind of has that natural hyperactivity or the brain is just constantly running and you have that difficulty focusing. So, I mean, if you're listening and you need brain support, you have something, there is something for everyone here, whether it's, you know, a lack of focus or lack of memory, we've got it for you. Any lasting thoughts on just the conversation on brain health in general, Meg, or any takeaways that we can leave with the listeners?
I think we really covered it all. You've got some options. And one thing you can do is we've really built our formulations so that you can take multiple formulations with each other. They complement each other. So for instance, if you want to take the focuser, you can also take the NeuroQ and the Clarity as well. I wouldn't recommend taking all three of them every single day, but it is cool to, if you are that biohacker, then you can kind of build upon these formulas. So I encourage you to go give them a try.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And we do also have essentials. So they're individual isolated ingredients that you can also stack onto the formulas too. So, well, Meg, it was such a pleasure having you on here. And just thanks for opening up and sharing your personal story and just giving us an insight into that, but then also your incredible and vast amount of knowledge on brain health. I know I'm not the only one that will say we are ready to have you back on the show. So thank you so much, Meg.
Thanks so much. That was super fun. I'll be back.
Okay, perfect. Take care.
All right. Bye.